that, we got Dan Calinescu, who's based out of Romania, and it is 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that for him.
Yeah.
And he's got a great smile on his face for being 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll tell you that.
That's right. Hey guys, great to be on your show. This is really exciting. Thanks for kicking off with this. This is great. It's 1 o'clock, 1:08. But we're fresh because we just launched, so we're still running out of that adrenaline. So I guess a little bit about me then.
Yeah, let's like we discussed, Dan. Let's do the who, what, where, why, and how, and we can go with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So just tell us about yourself and
Sure.
who you are and that stuff.
Sure. So I'm originally from Romania. My parents immigrated about 30 years ago. So my brother and I just follow along. That's a whole movie story in itself. And I lived 16 years away from Romania, 15 of those years in Toronto. And then 9 years ago, I decided to come back to Romania with my wife and children. We had 2 kids back then, and we have 4. So we settled in a city here in Romania called Cluj. This is the second biggest city, and it's affectionately called the Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe. I don't know if I like that, but it is definitely booming with I think over 500 software companies and so forth. So I studied at U of T, University of Toronto, computer science, majoring in software engineering. And I was a bit of a nerd when it came to stuff that now I realized I can actually use, things like computational complexity and stuff like that. So about 15 years ago, I had this decision to make whether I'll go in academia and become a prof or something like that, or entrepreneurship. And I just chose the startup route. I just always been building products. I've been building products since I was in high school. And I did run a few companies in Toronto. One of them was pretty successful. I exited a year after we started it because I made the personal decision of moving to Romania. And 2 years after I exited, the guys actually, my co-founders actually sold that company for a beautiful exit to a big company, to Zynga. So then what I did here in Romania, I actually started again. That was a mobile services company in 2008. So about a month after the App Store came out, we decided to build iPhone apps. We've been building apps at that stage for about 6 years. So we knew our stuff in mobile. So continued that here in Romania. I set up a company for a few years. Then I just kind of burned out a little bit with the little kids and all that. And that's actually part of the story in terms of managing parenthood, fatherhood, and startups. So I took a bit of break, went into some management. And about 3 years ago, I just kind of really questioned everything and whatever was in front of me, I kind of questioned. So I pretty much questioned the way developers learn. I think I must have interviewed hundreds of developers, hired dozens of them for my companies, for other companies, and so forth. And I just noticed a trend. The trend being that the way developers learn before they become developers is very different from the way developers learn on the job. Meaning, I was a TA in university, and I also did a lot of amateur teaching on the side back then. So I remember teaching was really all about you're taught to teach knowledge base, right? So you teach knowledge. So you teach things like, this is a variable and this is an array and so forth. And I actually blogged about this heavily on my blog. When I was 15, I was in grade 10. I pretty much flunked my first computer course because they would teach you about variables and arrays and even multi-dimensional arrays. Like, what's that? And then basically I just did not get it. And I started getting it when I kind of pushed myself to build a game. So you have this sort of a creative purpose, a meaning beyond the code. And I noticed that, even now, developers learn all the nitty gritty of what it takes to compile, write code and all that. But when it comes to actually product development and product, excellence, which is what users really care about, there's a big disconnect. So I kind of spent the last 3 years thinking about that. And what we're launching today is really the product of really that journey.
That's pretty cool, man. I think I saw your buddy in the chat, NS James, said he wants.
Yeah.
He said he wants you to have his babies. So.
You know what? I'll have Scatter, man. I'll have Scatter his baby, right? So yeah, as an entrepreneur, I guess you add your startups to your real baby. So I guess Carmel's my baby. So maybe Carmel and Scatter can make their own babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about Carmel, though. Like.
Sure.
What is
so
the
Carmel?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Well,
I wanted to know where it's at in the development, and like it sounds like you're talking launch, right? So.
Yeah. So it's funny because you mentioned in the intro this concept of just launching and iterating that Dan likes, and I'm really a big fan of that. I think that we're beyond the agile age. So what I really like is launching bits and pieces of a product that do something, a little bit of functionality, and iterating on that. So what we wanted to do today is launch something and start building a skeleton for the features that we want to add to the product. So I don't want to kind of like just add them 3 months before we launch. So what we did, we actually launched the Carmel.io site. You can actually sign up. We have user registration on there. There's a lot of other stuff coming, and we just have a very simple sort of landing page with the links to the white paper and Telegram and all that, but even an actual dashboard, right? There's only one link in the dashboard, which is really us keeping you in the loop with what we have in terms of updates, but it is a web app. It's beyond just a simple landing page, and we're going to keep adding that on a weekly basis for the next pretty much until the end of the year. So what Carmel really is, it's the embodiment of pretty much what I believe in terms of how developers should learn. And I actually, I don't think I mentioned this to you guys. I actually wanted to get a T-shirt with this, but I didn't get around to it. But I do want to. I actually figured out a simple formula, an equation that depicts every single thing I believe in when it comes to development and maybe even life. So this is pretty huge. It really is really simple. It's H greater than M. That's it. Where H stands for humans and M stands for machines. So what I really believe in is that humans are always and will always be more valuable than machine. This is what I believe in. This is, you're in this noisy world, you're supposed to stand for something. And what I guess what we really stand for, and what Carmel stands for, is I want to start with that. We stand for this idea of humans versus machines, right? So, I read so many stories about, I was just reading about Chinese factory workers after the whole Foxconn deal where they, in 2016, I think it was, they fired about 60,000 workers. And you hear all these stories more and more often now. And I heard stories of people killing themselves, suicides. People are really depressed. It really touches you as a human being when you're being told a machine is better than you. You're replaceable by machines. And even geniuses or genii like Stephen Hawking are really forecasting an era very soon, apparently, in their mind, where we're all going to be replaced by machines. Or best case scenario, I'll be R35992's slave. So to me, this is a shift in where we're going that cannot be overlooked. So, of course, as a father, but also as an entrepreneur, a tech guy, I just chew on this. I've been chewing on this for years, and I just, I want to do something about it. I want to do something about this concept of machines replacing humans left and right, machines being more important, machines being more valuable, and so forth. So I kind of dug deep, and I'm like, okay, so we have machines, right? And the people that are getting replaced are really the people that are on low tech jobs, right? Even higher tech jobs, higher intellectual jobs, like even surgeons and lawyers and accountants, but low tech. So you have jobs that can be automated by machine, even smart machines, AIs, right? I'm not talking about AI, right? Not autonomous, just regular AI. But one of the jobs that are, really hard to replace is programming. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about autonomous AI machines where they can potentially start programming themselves and so forth. They might get there, but if they do, that's the last thing they do, right? So what I realized that if we could teach a bunch of people to code, if we could give, and here's the thing, tech power, if we could distribute power in terms of technological power to people who don't have that today, I think we might actually have something on our hands, right? So if I go and here's 1 million people who are going to get replaced, what if I can actually teach you, or what if we can teach you as a community to program these machines, right? Even if your job's replaced by a machine, maybe you can keep a job programming the machine that replaced you, right? Because someone's going to program the machine. Someone's going to come up with an algorithm. So this was the vision, and it was really it's really in a way, you know, bigger than myself. It's bigger than a typical startup where you just create a SaaS product and you sell something. To me, it's bigger than, you know, stuff like online learning and video learning. And then I discovered blockchain. So I was just chewing on this. I was chewing on this for years, and I was working on the heart of the product. So the heart of the product is a product in itself. The heart of the product, the heart of Carmel, is another product called Chunky, which I've been working on for probably 2.5 years now. It's an open source software development platform. Think of Ruby on Rails, right? Think of something like that. That's a framework. This is a bit more complex. Think of maybe WordPress, okay? So for example, the site you see at carmel.io, that site is actually public. The source is open 100%. We're gonna open source every single thing we do on our GitHub profile. And if you look at that code, that's written in Chunky. And it's really cool. It can do a lot of stuff. So I started working on that for a while I was kind of chewing on this problem. I'm like, okay, I'm not exactly sure I'm going to take this. I'm not exactly sure I'm going to help a lot of humans, you know, get the skills they need. But I know I need to create something that makes it easier to get started. So I've been working on that. I started building apps. I'm actually teaching people one-on-one to use it. I'm even teaching my son to use it now. I want to really, yeah.
Dan, Chunky is a platform or a language, or both?
Yeah, no, it's a platform. It's a platform based on React. React is a framework that's pretty popular from Facebook, and it's based on a really cool modern JavaScript stack. So it has React Native. It's built on Webpack, Redux, and a lot of interesting things. The UI is based on a Material, the Material components from Google. It has a pretty end-to-end stack. You may call it full stack. Maybe the better name might be end-to-end, where you can build right now. It also has integration with a framework called serverless. You can find out more about that at serverless.com, where it has an integration with Firebase, which is a real-time database from Google. And it has all these sort of front-end and back-end components that allow you to create an app so easily that personally, I haven't seen anything that easy before. So it's really, I created something that I wanted. So in order for you to build an app which has authentication, a backend, a front end, a mobile app, all that stuff, you can do it really, really fast. And it's really powerful. So I knew I wanted to create something much in the vein of Pascal, right? So Pascal was this language created, I think it was in the 70s by a professor. And the reason why he created it is because he wanted something to give developers, students to start with upfront. That's not, you know, just variables and all that. So for example, in Chunky, you can write a little bit of JSON, which is just text configurations, right? Even a really non-programmer can write that. And then if you want to get deeper, then you can write some JavaScript and so forth. But you can get started really, really easily, easier than you can get started with installing a WordPress, for example. And it launches things like your static website. You can run a blog. You can write whatever you want. So I've been working on this, playing with it, testing with different people. But I knew something was missing. I knew I needed a way to get this into a lot of people's hands. And then that's where blockchain came in. So to me, blockchain is the story of me kind of building something chunky working on a problem, chewing on a problem, and then kind of like praying for something to come up, you know? So to me, I've been in this for maybe about a year now. I see all this sort of trends of kind of just putting something out there just because it's on the blockchain. And the way I approach it, and I think this is the healthy approach moving forward that I would love developers to take. I really look at blockchain as the missing link in my story, right? The thing that was missing for me to get this to where it needs to be. I need this to be bigger than myself. I don't want to be the only one teaching people. I wanted to build a community. So the community aspect is huge. It's huge. And I wanted the community to be autonomous, self-sustained. I don't want to have my company or myself or, you know, a third party or whatever manage this thing. So where do you find a technology that allows you to build a decentralized system, right? With no third party. And of course, there's got to be an economy because no one's going to be incentivized to create challenges and tutorials and so forth. And this is how I got into blockchain. So
how did you Dan, how did you find EOS? You have a pretty good story surrounding that.
Yeah. So basically, as soon as I find blockchain, obviously Bitcoin's first thing, right? Then I got into Ethereum. I looked at Solidity. I understood the idea of currency versus smart contracts pretty fast. That makes a lot of sense. And I saw the opportunity of creating really scripts, right? Which I guess that's the idea behind smart contracts, but they were so limited. And then I discovered Steam, right? So I discovered Steam before I discovered EOS, and I got onto every single thing I could find on Steam. I read every developer thing. There are even bounties for people developing stuff. Dan Larimer wrote a post, I think maybe 2 years ago, and I read that a few times about his sort of thoughts on how you could potentially use Steam to build sort of on top of it, kind of like a protocol. So I even actually attempted to do that. I looked at a code. I looked at what other developers did. I joined Steam. I was getting ready to create just kind of like a product. And then I discovered EOS. I discovered it. I can't remember how exactly, but I discovered it probably through, I think I discovered it through Steam. Someone posted something somehow, and I started reading articles. And this was probably July, something like that, last year. And to me, blockchain is completely another universe than cryptocurrency. So to me, when I look at cryptocurrency, and I try to avoid that word, and blockchain, I'm 100% excited, 110% excited by blockchain. Cryptocurrency, to me, I'm not excited about it. I invested in EOS because I believe in it. I did not invest in anything else, to be honest. My brother, my family, even my mom invested in Bitcoin. I did not. I just really feel that EOS is going to be, to me, the way I look at EOS, and I'm going to write about this recently, I think the way EOS will, I don't know if they will. I hope they will, and I hope people like us can do something about that. But I think the potential is there to become the greatest technology of the next decade. I believe EOS has the potential to become bigger than AI, bigger than virtual reality, bigger than anything that quantum computing is an exciting one for me, but I don't think it's going to be commercial in the next 10 years, or maybe I'm wrong. But I really believe blockchain technology as a platform. And right now, this is the only one that aims to deliver. I know Telegram is trying to deliver on that. Good luck with that. I don't know if they will. We'll keep our eye on that. But looking what Dan has achieved with BitShares and with Steam, and looking at the code, I tried the code myself, and we're still trying it, and we're still playing with it. Looking at his technology choices, he was debating between WebAssembly and something else, and looking at the way he thinks. I like what I'm hearing, and I like what I'm seeing, and I really, as a, let's say, a developer, architect, and whatever roles I had so far, I've been trained to look at how people develop software, and I like a lot of what I'm seeing. I think the trick with it is to build the right healthy community around it, around the concept of blockchain developers, not just around the concept of cryptocurrency, because to me, cryptocurrency is 0.01% of what EOS can do. This is not Ethereum. This is not Bitcoin. This is really, to me, it's the new Amazon cloud. It's the new serverless cloud. If you look at the way the internet has progressed, you had a mainframe, right? Then it got smaller, and then you had the PCs, and then you had basically companies like VMware that just killed the whole industry by virtualization, and now you have Amazon Lambda and things like that, where you basically have no servers. Well, basically, what we want to do is go beyond serverless. Serverless in the industry is maybe 3 years ahead of its time, so most people don't even know about serverless, don't even use serverless. Amazon Lambda is still building momentum. My prediction, let's say if you put a gun to my head and you say, okay, make some predictions. In my mind, I see maybe 3 years until most of the IT industry start using serverless type infrastructure, because I used to be a Linux a sysadmin, so I know my way around this stuff. It's not about not knowing, but man, why would I spend hours and hours configuring when I just press a button and just, okay. So what's the next step? What's the next step? It's blockchain, right? So to me, right now, Carmel, because we don't have the platform yet, but I want to give grandma features, right?
Yeah.
I'm using a serverless cloud with Amazon Lambda and with Firebase. But as soon as EOS gets its stuff together, I'm going to start migrating that. So the user experience for Carmel is going to be pretty much the same. So when EOS gets that, guys, and I'm predicting somewhere next year. Even if they launch this year, I think somewhere next year is going to be maybe ready for production. It's going to be so disruptive. I mean, I know Dan's using IPFS for the file system, and IPFS is huge already, but it's so cumbersome to use. If he figures that out, and he figures out authentication as well, man, I mean, this is your Amazon Lambda on steroids, right? For pretty much free or for peanuts. So that's why I think this is going to be huge. It's going to be insane.
You're really exciting. NS James there in the chat. I never heard him say when moon before, but he just said it. So I think you are speaking, you're preaching to the choir over here. Tell us more about, let's do a dive into Carmel, because a lot of folks have looked at your white paper. It's a phenomenal white paper. It really reads well,
guys.
And it relates well to everybody, every token holder, anyone who's trying to get involved in blockchain or learn about software development. You break it down. I mean, you take it down to the beginning and you let grandma get involved. So let's go into this a little bit, learn more about it.
Sure. So it's actually funny. I mean, maybe not funny, but it's exciting because for the past few years, I actually worked on a way of telling a story, a product story. We're actually calling it, there's a method I came up with. I'm calling it fluid innovation thinking. It's based on, I'm just going to kind of give you a bit of context. Basically, neuroscience, in the 60s, they've proven that we have two types of intelligence, right? So if you look at the human intelligence, you have crystallized intelligence and you have something called fluid intelligence. This is just a basic fact. It's pretty much undisputed in neuropsychology. So crystallized intelligence is the intelligence that we all accumulate by just piling on facts. So for example, if you go on trivia games, what's the capital of blah, 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 you have crystal intelligence. It turns out I don't have that much of that intelligence. Actually, my kids just taught me. I'm going to go crazy insane here, and I'm going to put myself on the spot, but I don't care. I just learned last week that the Pacific Ocean is the biggest ocean. So I'm pretty embarrassed. But honestly, anyways, the point is I just keep forgetting. I have this ridiculous memory. So I pretty much have to focus a lot on fluid intelligence. So fluid intelligence is the ability of coming up with spontaneous solutions to problems without prior knowledge, right? So for example, you get dropped in the middle of a city you've never been in. You got to take a cab to, or like at the subway, you have no idea, you can't speak the language, go, right? So people with low fluid intelligence will kind of panic, sweat, and so forth. So basically, I think entrepreneurship is all about fluid intelligence. Entrepreneurship is all about not having prior experience, especially when it comes to things like blockchain, guys. I mean, you know, who's going to tell you what's good and what's right? So fluid intelligence is really at the base of how I told the story, using this concept of fluid innovation thinking. And at the bottom, of that is building a story that keeps on developing. So I call it a fluid story. And the story is I really love the Lord of the Rings. So I call that a meta story. So I've built this model of building a product story around the meta model of the Lord of the Rings. So for example, in the Lord of the Rings, the hero is not Frodo, and the hero is not Gandalf, right? The hero is Aragorn. The hero is the guy who, in the first movie, he's like a bum in a bar, right? And then you go through the whole story, and the trilogy ends with him wearing a crown, with him being on top of the world, with him being the winner, him being the king. So the way I look at a product story, and specifically Carmel, but any product story, the first question I ask, who's the hero? Who's the Aragorn of my story? Who is he today? Like, who is my hero today? Version 1 of my hero. Who do I want the hero to be at the end of going with us in this journey? And then I just lay out the hero journey from version 1 to version 2. So to me, the hero has got to have a name, man. It's got to be the hero is going to be tangible. So I give my hero name Chris, and a bit of a profile. And my hero today is a person who struggles because they have a family to feed, and they watch the news and they see those Chinese guys killing themselves, unfortunately. And, that could happen everywhere. They have a lot of workers, but that could happen in Romania. That could happen maybe in the States. I don't know. That could happen everywhere. So my Chris guy cannot sleep at night. All right. So the question I always ask myself is, after who's the hero, what keeps your hero up at night? So maybe for other people building their products, it'd be worthwhile answering this question: what keeps your hero up at night? So my hashtag for Carmel is actually hashtag helping Chris sleep at night, right? That's and cool. The way I'd help Chris sleep at night is helping him not worry about the future, not worry about not having enough cash or enough whatever dignity to feed their family. So that's really the context of my story, and I wanted to start right there, hero focused. I was really surprised, guys, recently when I did some research on the product management. It turns out, if you actually do some studies on this, there's really not a lot of customer focused, customer oriented companies. And I thought they all are, right? But actually they're all product oriented. We all want to sell something. We all talk about us. When you look at value propositions, everyone talks about we, I, me, right? Our product, we are this, we are that. So I really, really wanted to make sure the first sentence in the white paper is not we, is not I, is not me, it's Chris. So the first word in our white paper starts with our hero. And the second sentence is why Chris can sleep at night. So everything goes down from there for us.
So Dan, the reason why Chris can sleep at night is he's going to learn better on Carmel, right?
So he hopefully will sleep better at night after he learns with Carmel. Yeah.
Okay. How's Carmel going to do that? What's your plan to make Carmel the go-to better than Udemy or any one of those other learning platforms?
Great question. And just so you know, before even attempting this, I actually spent quite a bit of time on Udemy and even on Pluralsight and stuff. So I think why Carmel? Because right now there's really to my knowledge, no platform that is skills based. So if you look, I listened to a podcast recently with Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO from Facebook. I guess pretty well known for her HR capabilities, and I completely agree with her when she said you need to hire for skills, right? So the best HRs, the best companies hire developers for skills, but the education is not skills based. So you can see the disconnect. So if you go to Udemy today, what will Chris do? So Chris sits in front of the computer, watches a video, presses pause, rewinds, presses forward again, pauses it, and then he's on his own. He has to bring up his editor, he has to bring up his terminal, and he's still lost. Best case scenario, here's a Hello World app, or here's a template for like a Flappy Bird game, and redo that. And I have friends, guys, I'm actually running meetups here locally, and we're working with developers closely. And there's people who have actually spent time and even money going through such sort of educational models, and they're struggling to get a job. They're struggling to get a job because developers cannot build real products with that kind of education. So if you need to hire a developer, I don't care if you aced that course. I don't care if you got an A. All I care about is, can you build this website? Can you build this mobile app? Can you build this API? And education models right now, in terms of Pluralsight, Lynda, Udemy, edX, whatever you want, I looked at, I think the top 14, they're over like 300 million in terms of investment. And every single one of them, there's actually even a blockchain one. They're on Ethereum, so I have no idea how they're going to pull this off, but they raised the money. I think it's called Bit Degree. They pay you to learn, which is a dumb mistake, by the way. It's a big mistake, because I think developers are not incentivized when they get paid. I think they're incentivized when they need to pay, and that's a big problem. But it's all based on videos, and it just doesn't work. So I think, why Carmel? Because we're not based on videos. We're based on micro tasks. So for example, as a project manager or a product manager who works with issues, if you look at our GitHub repository, for example, you would see, over 60, 70 issues there. A lot of those issues, most of those issues are not expressed as technical items, right? So for example, a project manager who might not be technical, or a client might say, hey, give me a logging screen on my mobile phone where I have a password and an email and a name. Do it, right? So that is a verbalization of a non-technical verbalization of a requirement. So today, this is how work gets done. This is how developers get tasks. But you don't see that in videos. You don't see that in Udemy. You don't see that in Pluralsight. You see things like write this Redux action and create this array and write this API. So they're all based on the code. They're all based on the lines you write. So if you look at chunky.io, or the tagline I came up with is, you gotta think beyond the code, right? So I think Carmel is the only platform right now, probably not the only one in the future, but if they copy it, then that's a good thing for us, I'd say, who takes the developer beyond the code. So we want to create these tasks, we call them challenges, right? Micro challenges. Let's say they take you between half an hour to 2 hours, similar to basically the way you'd get tasks as a developer in your issue tracker. Do this, do that, do this, right? Now, you start off by having no clue how to do that, right? So what do? You follow a tutorial, a challenge, step by step, on how to do that little thing. And to do that, you don't have to memorize things. You don't have to watch 1,000 videos. You just have to start opening up your editor. You start typing, and if you have the Carmel desktop app installed, which will come up soon, you'll be able to download at some point, the app will actually monitor what you type. You'll monitor your changes, and as soon as you actually start getting that right, then you basically get your reputation points on the platform. And when you get that, recruiters, developer manager, other developers can actually clearly see what you're good at. Chris can build a site, deploy it on an Amazon bucket, and host it on CloudFront. Chris can create a logging screen on a mobile app using beautiful fonts, whatever. Things that people can understand. So if you go to carmel.io/your username in the future, we want that to be kind of like the third place where recruiters look in addition to GitHub and LinkedIn for developers, maybe the first place at some point, because you should be able to see a beautiful story with a timeline of what Chris has learned, the user has learned. With your reputation points, you can follow Chris. You can even ask Chris to learn certain specific things that you might be interested in as a recruiter. So imagine you want to follow Chris and say, I kind of like what he does, but if he knew this thing and this thing and this other thing, I would hire him. Hey, Chris, would you be interested in learning those things? And then if you are, come in for an interview. Do you think Chris would like to learn that? Of course. So we're pretty much building, a bridge between developers, aspiring developers, development managers, entrepreneurs, and business owners who need the work, and recruiters. So these are kind of like the plots of the story around Chris. And honestly, right now, there's nothing like that, guys. And putting it back in the EOS storyline, the idea of tokens is something that no one can do right now, because there's really no, Udemy is not on a blockchain and so forth. They might one day, who knows? And the idea of a token came to me before thinking of the blockchain, because I have a big background in mobile games. I worked with a bunch of games in the past, and this concept of gamification is kind of entrenched in the way I think about incentivizing people to use products. So the idea of a token came to me years ago when I really discovered this problem as a dev manager. You have a budget as a development manager, and then you have a bunch of developers. You need to spend that money to get your developers, to learn things, get them smarter, get them to grow. And every single developer manager on this planet, guys, cannot tell you the ROI on their training budget. They cannot. So they buy. So here's what you do: you buy books, you send them to conferences, you get trainers in house, you send them to out, third-party training. You do whatever you can, and obviously you buy them subscriptions to Pluralsight and Udemy and Lynda, and then a month later, like, I just spent $2,000 on this guy. Okay, what do you know? How much smart are you? How much quicker are you? How much more productive? What do you know? And because there's no such thing as a measure of skill set, there's no such thing as the equivalent of a kilogram for weight, the equivalent of a mile for length. There's no such thing as a unit of measure for skill set for devs. We're lost. So imagine a dev manager on Carmel saying, I spent $1,000 on Carmel tokens. I ask my developers to learn these things, and so forth and so forth. And a month later, I looked at Johnny, and Johnny is $200 smarter and 300 experience points smarter because he learned this and this and this and this.
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
crazy.
man.
That's cool.
So
yeah. So basically,
Dan,
you get your
like,
ROI.
It's such a unique proposition that you have here, and it's really speaking to I think that's speaking to a lot of our viewers as well too, and people in the chat. So when are you planning to launch? Like what is your timeline here?
Right. So basically, we launched today.
Okay.
we launched the site today. So if you go to carmel.io, we have a backend on Firebase. We created an authentication chunk, right? Because that's how Chunky works. And we're gonna start launching features, I think, at least weekly until the end of the year. So the way we plan to do this is as follows. We're bootstrapping right now. So there's 3 of us right now. We're bootstrapping the crap out of this. I've been bootstrapping it for a long time. And we got to raise some funds to get it to where it needs to be. So what I want to do is we're starting this distribution model that took me months to come up with. And I think it's right for the next 25 weeks. And it's going to end September 3rd. And what we want to do, we're going to aim to launch a 1.0 version of Carmel by the end of the year. So that would mean December 31st at latest. I'll love to launch it before Christmas, but I'm just putting down December 31st as the hard deadline as I wrote it in the issue that's going to get into the white paper this week. And what we want to do is 25 weeks of a fundraising campaign with updates, continuous updates, continuous updates, continuous updates. The architecture is outlined in the white paper. We're going to do a hybrid architecture. So I'm not going to go all in on EOS because it doesn't have what I need yet. But as soon as EOS has it, without messing with the user experience, you're going to get it. So if you go to Carmel right now and create an account, it goes to our backend right now. But as soon as EOS has that, you know what? You're not going to know the difference. You're going to keep signing up. You're part of the blockchain. So what we want to do is raise enough money, launch a bunch of updates until September, and then as soon as we get that, then we want to create 1.0 by the end of the year, which will include the following: a desktop app that you can download on Mac, Windows, and Linux, of course built with Chunky, and then you're going to be able to see a list of challenges that you can take, and we're already creating challenges already, right? So we're going to have challenges coming up nonstop. So you're going to be able to take a challenge, click on a challenge, pay from tokens from your wallet. Get that challenge going by creating the code that challenge requires on your desktop. Submit your request, your solutions, and then basically get your reputation point. So you'll be able to do that by December 31st. You'll be able to also download the mobile app and request things like add challenges that you want to buy. We're still thinking about whether we want to let people create transactions from mobile and the web. I actually had a lot of questions with Nathan about that. Right now, I'm insanely paranoid about security, and right now I think, as of today, I'm only going to allow people to create transactions from their desktop, because as a developer, you live on your desktop anyways, right? But I think on mobile, you'll be able to kind of like follow people. You'll be able to like people. You'll be able to upvote challenges and authors, right, to bubble them to the top. So you're going to be able to see a top 10 or top 100 list of best authors and best developers and so forth. So basically, that's what you're going to get. You'll be pretty usable by the end of the year. And then what we want to do is raise enough money to put a team together and start building this as a community project for the next few years. And really, we're not selling anything. The business model is very simple. I'm not selling anything. It's 100% open source. I want to create a precedent of how I think software should work in the future. I think we shouldn't pay for software. Even the service should be built by the community. I think what we should do is 100% focus on community building. So to me, I want Carmel to be owned by people who contribute to it. So if you contribute to GitHub today, there will be we're going to have a stable inflation, fixed inflation, and we're going to use that money in something I call a fluid fund to pay people who add issues to GitHub, to create pull requests and so forth. And then we're also hopefully going to have enough money to do things like scholarships. This is a very dear thing to my heart. I really want to go to impoverished neighborhoods in this country and maybe other countries and actually establish Carmel training programs and get kids out of poverty, man. If we give them the skills to code, they just need an internet connection and they can code from whatever village and like get their mom and dad out of poverty. So this is what we're hoping we can do as of 2019.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you mentioned the token. So, and going back to that token briefly, so it does it count as a reputation / identity, and it also tracks what the user has accomplished. And you mentioned that if a company bought $200 worth of training for an employee, and say Johnny earned 300 points worth, so it basically is the company able to track how fast Johnny is picking things up and learning?
100%. Yeah. So the token economy is still in progress. We're talking about it in our channel. So I invite everyone to join our channel on Telegram. I'm being super transparent about stuff that I'm still thinking about and we're still chewing on. So the token works as follows right now in terms of the way we see it. We're going to have one single token. I really want, again, simplicity to me is going to be, I'm going to be as paranoid about simplicity as security. So I love Steam. The 3 token model drives me crazy though. So I'd love to just have one single token. And then what you want to do is what we're going to do, and I described that in an issue in our community. As an author, you're going to be able to have a difficulty that you assign to your challenge. It's going to be 5 difficulties, right, from junior to expert. Based on that difficulty, there's a set points of experience points that the people will get if they complete it. So if you say this challenge is a junior challenge, if someone completes it, they'll get 5 experience points or something like that. So the experience points are really kind of like, think of it. The best analogy to an XP, to an experience point in Carmel is really a Steam dollar, right? We want to fix it to a fiat. So an XP is going to be pretty much close to $1, right? So, but you're going to be able to only get that if you actually pay in tokens. So we have I don't want to call it a dual token model, but it is really the token, and the token releases experience points. So it is the purpose of it is to track everything. So That's why I love EOS. EOS because I don't want to have transactions only for purchases. I want to have transactions for many other different things. So the model with EOS I love because you just create messages between users. So what I want to do is have different types of transactions so that when a developer gets, and I was actually talking to Nathan about this, when a developer starts a challenge, I want to know if they failed it 3 times before, right? So I know Nathan was saying that he was actually more interested in people who failed it more times and got it because they show persistence. So every single time you do something, we want to create a transaction on the blockchain, and then that's going to be 100% transparent to everyone, right? So of course, employers, developers, your mom, everyone's going to see your progress, and we're going to come up with a beautiful UI to show you that progress. So things like, you might even get badges. Congratulations, you didn't give up. You know, you're like, you don't have enough experience points to make it to the top 10, but maybe you'll make it to the top 10 people who earn the persistent badge or something like that. So we want to reward that because one of the things that happens, especially in the courses I was doing face-to-face, one of the biggest problems is that people get excited. Yeah, this is good. I'm going to program. And then they give up, right? Yeah. So we want to make sure we incentivize people to stay with it. And that's one way of doing it. So yeah, so everything's going to be public, all the transactions.
This is awesome, Dan. I just wanted to say, like, thanks for joining us today and making these announcements. It was really good to catch up on this. And like you said, if anybody's interested, join the Telegram Carmel Telegram chat, and we can post that in the chat or afterwards if you can find out and link that to you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome for you. This is an honor. And I hope this is the beginning of something great. It reminds me of 2008, and even before that, when the App Store came out, everything was new. The App Store came up with 500 apps. EOS probably wants to come up with 1,000. And what I love about the early beginnings of something great is that you can just have a lot of firsts, right? So this is our first sort of a chat, your first broadcast, I guess, my first announcement. And I think there's going to be a lot of updates from here on. So I'm looking forward to collaborating with you guys and following you. And I think this is the kind of stuff that we need to make sure that products like mine that want to take on the world benefit from a strong community. Because this, again, we're giving away the code, we're giving away everything. We need a community. So people like you are 100% part of the equation, and us developing it, the other side of the equation. So if you can find things like these, to collaborate, I think this is what's going to make it.
Thanks, Dan. I mean, amazing. Kevin, do you have anything else for Dan? It was a pleasure having you on, man. And like you said, it's a first for us, and we were glad to have you as our first guest.
I really appreciate it, guys. Really.
I have to say the same thing. Really, it's been great meeting you, and I just found out about your project last week. And Blue Jays has been following you for a long time.
Yeah.
But it was James who turned NS James in the chat. Yeah. Everybody knows him from Scatter. He messaged me and he said, "Hey, Dan he's doing an amazing thing over here, and you should check it out." So,
well, shout out to NS James, then. Thanks, brother.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, and we look forward to working with you going forward and keeping and following your project and getting involved. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks again. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.